Good afternoon, loves. I hope you've been well. Thank you so much for returning to the channel. For those new here, welcome. I'm Claudia. I have turned on my camera this afternoon to speak the unspeakable. I have turned on this camera to voice what needs to be shared. For the unsayable must always be shared. Why? Because we cannot continue to cultivate a culture of silence. If adults remain silent about things that hurt them, how can we expect our children to voice what hurts them? So we need to follow Cardi's example. We can learn a lot from Cardi B and her songs. And one in particular is Say It Loud. Say it loud. And speak up. Say it loud for the bitches in the back. Talk about it. Let's talk about it. I understand and appreciate Cardi. I find her laudable because we do need to speak up and say it loud for everyone in the back, in the front, on the sides, in the peanut gallery, wherever you are and you stand in this universe. You need to hear what brings pain to those who suffer. And we need to hear what happens when these people come forward, me included, you included, if you have been silent, as I have been silent. When people stand up and give voice to what has happened to them, they liberate themselves. I liberate myself today before this camera. I liberate myself when I give voice to the unsayable, to the unspeakable. What is the unspeakable? What is the unsayable? Rape and sexual abuse in this video would equate the unsayable, the unspeakable. I met rape when I was approximately 15, and I met it at a party that my father finally gave his permission for my older sister and my twin brother and I to go to a party of a classmate in my class, in my twin brother's class. And he was having a party at his home. I don't know if it was a birthday party or just a party, but my father was not the type of father to give permission to go anywhere other than the backyard. He had the premise or the upbringing that your children stayed around you. They stayed at home. Now that premise has credence because you can protect your children that way. But you cannot equip them to stand in the world as adults who are ready to speak up and speak out about anything that's on their minds or anything that hurts them. If you shelter and protect them so much that they don't get a chance to go out into the world and learn how to speak, navigate, and stand up. So when we finally got to this party, I'm in this party and the classmate comes to me and decides to tell me that he has his pet monkey upstairs and he wants to show him to me. He had a pet monkey. Everybody knew that. Some of us had seen it. There were pictures. So he had a pet monkey. And for many, many years, I forgot his name. But I never forgot him. And I never forgot his monkey. And I never forgot the party. And I never forgot the sexual abuse that happened that night at his party. So I went upstairs to see the monkey with him, and that is where the rape took place, upstairs in his home with a full party beating it out downstairs. I was so shocked that when I finally could arouse myself to get up, because he had gotten up and left and gone downstairs as if to say, well, this might be usual. This might be the standard. So, not might be, as if to say, this is the standard. This is usual. So he went on about his business. And I went downstairs shell-shocked. And I found my sister and her friends. And I stayed with them. I stayed with my sister like a shadow. I did not move until we got ready to leave the party. And for years afterwards, I never voiced what happened that night. I never spoke about it. One, I was ashamed that it happened to me. Two, how could it have happened to me when I was so smart? I was so smart in school. I got all A's. I prided myself on my academics and being mature, but yet I faced and met rape at a party. It just wasn't something to be voiced, or so I thought at the time. And I buried that incident deep down and thought that it would stay there under the piles and piles of mental rock that I had it under the pile of heartbreak that I had it under. But it surfaced when I was orchestrating a talk show years later as an adult. I was orchestrating a talk show and I was interviewing a guest who had been raped. And in that interview, I told her that I too had been raped. Now, not only did I bury that incident of rape, I was so deeply embedded and ensconced in the culture of silence. I was raped again in the home of a friend. This was after I graduated from college, and I was living with my older sister before beginning work that summer. My friend and I were supposed to go out that night, and she invited me to her home, to her apartment. She was already living on her own. She did not attend college. So I went to her apartment. We had the usual girl talk, popcorn, and then she had a guest to come over, a guest whom I had never met, a guest who was significantly older than us, because graduating from college, I was 19, and she was 18, 19. This guest, he was, I would say, I would think he seemed to be latter 20s, perhaps early 30s. And she introduced him to me as her play brother. And she spoke of him highly. But I didn't feel comfortable with him. Not because he had done or said anything, but because she wanted to leave me to continue talking with him and watching television with him while she went to get drinks that I never drank, while she went to get alcohol, and she knew I did not drink. And I said, I'll go with you to get the alcohol. He can stay here or come with us. And the unthinkable happened, because I went round for round verbally with her, talking about, no, I don't need to stay and entertain him. He's your friend. I can ride with you to get the alcohol. And finally, when I succumbed to staying and chatting with him, continuing the talks with him, she went on to get the drinks. And in the process of her going on to get the drinks, the rape happened. And when she got back, it was done. And And I said to her, "Take me home." Her question was almost as if she were shocked and amazed. What? We're just going to start to watch a movie, eat popcorn and drink. I said, "No, you need to take me home right now." And I should have used the same tone with her when she suggested I stay, because she took me home and I got out of that car and left her questions behind me. And her question was, "What happened?" "Claudia, what happened?" I never answered. I dropped the veil of silence on her. Why? Because I thought, it just occurred to me that she had to have planned that, or it had to be something she and her friend did before, because it was just so smoothly orchestrated. So I felt betrayed. Why did she need an explanation? It was something she perhaps had thought would go a different direction. Maybe she thought I would like him or just submit to it and think it was fun. But I didn't. When I got out of her car that evening, I never spoke another word about that rape. I never spoke to the friend again. She called me for some time, but I never answered. And I proceeded to do the very same thing with that rape that I did with the first. I simply interred it within myself and walked away, thinking that it would never surface. How could it resurface if I buried it? I went on to live what I thought was a wonderful life. And in a purportedly loving relationship, sexual abuse followed me like an unwelcomed guest. And it followed me to the point where I had to one day speak the words within myself to the divinity within me. How do I make this stop? I don't know how to make it stop. And I asked that question tacitly, quietly, as the abuse was going on, as it was in progress. And I felt my spirit saying to me, "You know how to make it stop. Have faith. You know how. Say it. Speak the words." And I thought, speak the words to the person, to the abuser. And I realized that I could speak the words to myself. I said within myself, "No more. No mas. No more." And it was done. It was done. It didn't happen in that relationship anymore. It was like closing a door, closing a window. And I am here to say to you today, you cannot in your life know that silence is the answer to something that you've kept buried, that you needed to speak about. I should have spoken about the first rape to my parents. I should have received help. I should have received counseling, perhaps from a counselor at school, from my parents, I should have perhaps spoken to my friends about it, to see if anything like that had happened to them. But years later, as I was sharing my past with my family, my brother, my twin brother, remembered our classmate's name because I had buried his name in silence as well. My brother said, the only classmate we had with a pet monkey was, and he spoke his name. I hadn't heard it in years, but I knew at that moment that he spoke it, that that was the person who had violated me. And I remember the name of my friend at the time who betrayed me, and I betrayed myself in Montgomery when I stayed with my sister that summer after college graduation. I never forgot her name, but I do not know the name of the abuser in that situation, the rapist. I do not know his name. I don't even know if she told me his name. But what I'm saying to you now, regardless of the names, is that silence can no longer be the answer that you use to keep your hurts buried. Who are you protecting in silence? The abuser? The perpetrator? Yourself? No, you're not protecting yourself. You protect yourself when you speak. When you speak, you honor the heart. You honor yourself. In 2016, I began to put a manuscript together of the voices of women who had been raped. I asked on my blog at the time for testimonials for women who wanted to honor their hearts and speak about the unspeakable and begin to set themselves free or continue the process of freedom when you speak. I received so many manuscripts, and I entitled it To Honor the Heart, a book of forgiveness. Because we must forgive. We must forgive, though we can never forget. I don't think. But we must forgive ourselves. We must forgive abusers. We must forgive rapists in order to live and shine. Because today, in this light, in this spotlight, in my own spotlight, I shine. And still, after all of it, and still I shine. And I think about Maya Angelou's poem, and still I rise. There is a power in her poetry. There is a power in the words she left behind. It is the same power within me. It is the same power within you. And we must marshal that power to teach our children and our daughters especially to speak up when they face abuse in their lives, to tell someone. Yes, we know this culture blames the victims. Yes, we know that. And yes, we know this culture will shame and blame the victims. But we must not allow shame and blame to become our bosom buddies. We must banish them the same way that we banish silence. And whenever you decide to speak up, that is when you should speak. It doesn't matter the years. It doesn't matter the months or the days or the minutes or the hours. It matters that you speak. And last night I was looking at one of my favorite African YouTubers. Her name is Dima Ume. Dima Ume said, whenever you wake up, speak up. Speak. Because that silence of holding it within will take its turn being buried for a while. And you walk in that silence until you stand up, until you wake up, until you speak up. So speak. Hablar, chatear. Speak the words of your heart and honor it. We need to know that rape happens. And it can happen anywhere. It can happen in the home. It can happen at school. It can happen on the job. It can happen in the streets. Wherever there are people, it can happen. And it doesn't matter what you're dressed in. It doesn't matter how your hair is styled. It doesn't matter how you walk. It happens. It's a crime, not of passion. It's a crime of opportunity. It's a crime of control. And it's a crime that needs to be addressed. Sometimes we think it can't happen to us. It doesn't happen to the women or the men in our families. But it does. Sometimes we think it only happens in certain countries because certain countries get almost earmarked for rape. But people exist worldwide. And wherever there are people, there are crimes. And rape is one of them. When you give yourself the right to speak, you give yourself the right to heal. And healing is paramount. You are strength epitomized. I am strength epitomized. The very breath we take anchors us in our strength. So we breathe and speak loudly and say it loud for the people everywhere. We need to talk about it because rape can exist and flourish in silence. We have platforms here on YouTube, whether we're putting on makeup and showing you different looks, whether we're serving you hair or serving you clothes and fashion and style, whether we're gamers and we're laughing and playing and joking and uplifting when we do what we do on this platform. But use your platform for way more than what you wake up and turn on that camera for. Use your platform to touch hearts. Use your platform to strengthen souls. Use your platform to straighten the back when it's bent. Use your platform to elucidate, to educate, to stimulate, to motivate, to inspire. I'm going to use this platform to share the words of one of my favorite poets, Maya Angelou, the author of And Still I Rise. Still I rise. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room? Just like moons and like suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. In loving memory of Dr. Maya Angelou. In tribute to all who have known sexual abuse and rape, to the victory of all survivors. We'll rise. We rise. We rise. Toni Morrison. If you surrender to the wind, you can fly. Bye. I'll see you in the next video. Have a wonderful week.